I pulled up the snow-dusted drive to my little cedar house in the San Juan Pines, the one I'd bought with every overtime shift at the hospital, every skipped vacation, every Christmas I worked double so my boy could have braces in college. The porch light was on. That was wrong. I hadn't left it on. My key turned, but the deadbolt resisted. Someone had changed the locks on the home I'd deeded to my son for safekeeping. Through the frosted pane, I saw them. My daughter-in-law's parents, her brother, her sister's kids, sprawled across my Navajo rugs like they'd always belonged. My cast-iron skillet, my mother's skillet, sizzled on the stove with someone else's chili. That was the moment my heart cracked clean in two. Let that sink in. I'm Eleanor Hayes, 68 years old, widow of 30 years. The woman who once carried my grandson on my hip while I scrubbed blood from scrubs at 3 a.m. so my son could chase his engineering dreams. And now strangers wore my slippers. The drive up had been quiet. Just the crunch of tires on ice and the low hum of NPR. I'd left Denver at dawn, thermos of Folgers between my knees, needing the pines to stitch me back together after the chemo left me hollow. My oncologist said rest, elevation, solitude. I pictured my quilt, the one I pieced from David's old scout shirts, and the creak of the rocker by the wood stove. Instead, I got this. I stood on the porch a full minute, breath fogging, keys useless in my gloved hand. Inside, laughter, my laughter's echo, but not mine. The scent of cumin and garlic drifted out. Someone was using my spice rack. My spice rack I'd labeled in my careful nurse's handwriting, Oregano 2018, time from Aunt Ruth's garden. I pressed my forehead to the cold glass. My daughter-in-law's mother, Cheryl, lifted my grandmother's teapot, Blue Willow, the one I'd saved 6 months to buy in 1974, and poured for her sister. My teapot, my table, my mountains. I slept in the Subaru that night, seat reclined, blanket from the trunk smelling of dog and pine needles. At first light, I walked to the county clerk, boots crunching, cheeks raw. The deed was still in my name. David had never recorded the quitclaim I'd signed in a haze of morphine and trust. For tax purposes, Mom, just for now. Tomorrow. Tomorrow never came. Back home, no. Back there. I brewed coffee in the thermos and sat on the tailgate watching smoke curl from my chimney. My chimney. I remembered teaching David to stack kindling when he was 8. His small hands blistered, proud. I remembered the first time he brought Sarah home, how she'd traced the grain of the log walls and whispered, "It's like a storybook." I'd given them the downstairs bedroom for their honeymoon because the upstairs mattress was lumpy. I'd slept on the couch with a crick in my neck for a week. Love is lumpy, I told myself. Love is also blind. Sarah's texts had slowed after the wedding, then stopped. David's calls became voicemails. "Mom, we're swamped." The grandkids' drawings quit arriving in the mail. I sent checks anyway. Birthdays, braces, that semester abroad for Sarah's niece. "Family helps family," I typed, thumbs aching with arthritis. The money left my account. Gratitude never returned. I cataloged the house like a crime scene. My mother's rocker held a stranger's laundry. My books, first editions I'd hunted in dusty shops, were stacked under a toddler's sippy cup. The quilt chest, cedar-lined, gaped open. Someone had used my wedding quilt as a dog bed. I lifted it, sniffed the faint urine, and felt something inside me calcify. That afternoon, I drove to Telluride, to the lawyer who'd drafted my will when David was still in diapers. Margaret remembered me. She'd babysat him once. I slid the folder across her desk. Bank statements, transfer records, the unrecorded deed. I want the locks changed, the utilities in my name only, and a new will. Today. Margaret didn't flinch. "Eleanor, are you sure?" I thought of the skillet, the teapot, the dog on my quilt. I've never been sure of anything since the day I pushed that boy into the world. By dusk, the locksmith's van sat in my drive. My drive. New deadbolts, new keys, one set only. I transferred the utilities online while eating a granola bar in the cab of my car. Then I walked inside. The air smelled foreign. Someone's coconut shampoo, cheap candles. I opened every window, though it was 20 degrees. Let the cold reclaim what was mine. They came home. Cheryl, her husband Ron, the whole caravan, grocery bags swinging. Cheryl stopped dead on the threshold. "Eleanor? What are you doing here?" As if I were the intruder. I stood by the stove, hand on my skillet like it was Excalibur. "I live here, Cheryl. Question is, what are you doing with my key?" Ron blustered about, David said. Sarah's sister tried tears. The kids hid behind couches. I waited, calm the way you learn to be when you've started IVs on screaming children. When the noise peaked, I spoke once. Out, now, or the sheriff arrives in 6 minutes, I just called. I held up my phone, timer counting. They left in a flurry of coats and accusations, tires spitting gravel. David called that night. I let it ring twice, then answered. Mom, what the hell? Sarah's parents have nowhere to go. His voice cracked like it did at 12 when he broke my mother's vase. I said, they have choices. So do you. He tried guilt, then anger, then the old refrain. After everything we've been through? I thought of the everything, my everything. Yes, I said. After. I hung up. The house was silent again, but different. I scrubbed the skillet until my shoulders burned, the iron singing under the sponge. I washed the quilt in cold water, hung it on the line though it was freezing. The fabric would remember mountain air. I burned the coconut candle in the fire pit and watched fake vanilla scent curl into stars. Morning came pale and sharp. I sat in my rocker, reclaimed, with coffee in my own mug, the one David painted at summer camp. World's best mom, in lopsided letters. The mountains stood unchanged, indifferent witnesses. I opened my laptop and booked a cabin in New Mexico for spring, somewhere with red rocks and no family within 500 miles. I rewrote the will. The house to a women's shelter in Durango, the investments to a scholarship for single mothers in nursing school. David would get the painted mug and nothing else. Some nights I still hear echoes, Cheryl's laugh, a child's cartoon from my TV. I let them pass like wind through pines. I garden now. Hands in soil that's mine, planting columbine that will outlast all of us. I volunteer at the clinic, teaching young nurses how to find a vein on the first try. They call me Miss Ellie. I like the sound. Betrayal is a slow drip, then a flood. You don't dam it with tears. You redirect the river. I redirected mine toward sunrise over red cliffs, toward the click of my own deadbolt, toward the weight of a skillet that knows whose hand it answers to. I am 68, cancer-free for now, and the sole inhabitant of a house that finally, fiercely, belongs to me. If you're listening and your own heart's been mortgaged without your say, remember this. Locks can be changed, wills rewritten, quilts washed clean. Love doesn't require surrender. Sometimes the bravest thing a mother can do is close the door she once left open, turn the key, and walk toward her own horizon. The mountains will wait. They always do.